Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Kathy Zeman is going to be running the meeting, but this is Jane Jewett. And if anybody would like to see notes from past meetings or follow along with today's, I'm putting a folder link in the chat that has all of our local food advisory committee meeting things in it.
It's 12:59, folks. We'll get started right at 1:01. All right. Looks like it's 1:01, so let us start the LFAC, Local Foods Advisory Committee meeting for January 2022. This is Kathy Zeman with the Minnesota Farmers Market Association. I will try to coordinate today's meeting. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. Wendy, you're in my upper left. Do you want to kick it off and then hand it off to somebody, and we'll try to popcorn it around and catch everybody.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. I'm Wendy Spanier. I'm the South Field Operations Supervisor for the Minnesota Department of Health, the Food, Pools, and Lodging Services section. So let's go next to Angie.
Hi, I'm Angie Wheeler, and I'm the Program Manager for the Food, Pools, Lodging Services section at MDH. And the next person that I see is Jennifer Steffes.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Steffes. I'm a supervisor with the Meat Inspection Program at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Glad to be here. Thanks for coordinating.
Let's go to Stu next.
Hey everyone, Stu Laurie. I do government relations for Minnesota Farmers Union. Good to see everyone.
Jane, you want to go next?
Sure. Jane Jewett, Minnesota Institute for Sustainable Agriculture at the University of Minnesota. And I am taking notes. I'll throw the link back in the chat in a minute after everybody's introduced themselves. Thanks.
Jackie?
Next.
Oh, go ahead.
I think I'm the only Jackie. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Bilheimer with the University of Minnesota Extension. I'm our Farm to Institution Coordinator. Were there any other questions to answer on this?
No, go ahead. Why don't you kick Jeff? Why don't you go next?
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, Kathy, everybody on the call. Jeff Ludeman, Retail Food Program Manager with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Thank you.
Heidi.
There we go. Okay, sorry, I was having trouble there. Heidi Varberg with the Dairy and Meat Inspection Division at the Minnesota Department of Ag, and I'm an outreach coordinator.
Thanks. Jess, you want to go next?
You bet. Hi, everybody. My name is Jess Joyce. I'm down in Rochester, and I am presenting today on some work we did at the Rochester Farmers Market.
Todd.
Hi, my name is Todd Bram. I'm the business director for Featherstone Farm in Rushford, Minnesota. I'm kind of a bystander. Thanks for letting me attend the meeting.
Welcome. Maureen? Maureen might be juggling a baby, so Ren, if you're available.
I am. I'm Ren Olive. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm with the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships with the University of Minnesota Extension.
Suzanne.
Good afternoon, Suzanne Dreesen, University of Minnesota Extension Food Safety Educator.
Emily.
Hi, everyone.
everybody.
Oh,
Oh,
it's Julie. Sorry, my
This
bad.
always happens. Emily, you can go first.
Okay, Emily Reno, Assistant Planner with West Central Initiative based in Fergus Falls.
And I'm Emily Jervy. I supervise the marketing team at the Department of Agriculture.
Thanks, ladies. Lolly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lolly Okino. I'm a senior food scientist with AURI, the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute.
Dan Zimmerly.
Hey folks, Dan Zimmerly here with Sustainable Farming Association.
Valerie Gamble.
Hey, Valerie Gamble. I'm the Produce Safety Program Manager at the Department of Agriculture.
Tamara.
Hello, Tamara Downs-Schwei, Homegrown Minneapolis Coordinator in the Minneapolis Health Department.
Kirsten.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kirsten Weigel with the Maple Grove Farmers Market.
Alex.
Hi, everyone. Oh, there we go. Hi, I'm Alex Cortez. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for the Produce Safety Program at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture in Outreach and Communications.
Julia.
Hi, everybody. I work with Stu at the Minnesota Farmers Union as the legislative coordinator. Good to see you all.
Sarah, are you, oh, Brett, are you there renewing the countryside?
Yeah, hi, Brett Olson from Renewing the Countryside. You did it for me, Kathy, thanks.
Maureen, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I apologize. Yes, I am juggling baby at home. Marina Molo, I'm with the University of Minnesota Extension as a food safety specialist.
Thanks, Maureen. Sadie?
Hey everyone, my name is Sadie Gannett. I'm with the Minnesota Department of Health and I am the Food Systems Coordinator.
Carly. Carly Ackerman.
Hi there. Thank you. Sorry, I was just a little late jumping on. I'm Carly Ackerman with the Minnesota Grocers Association. I am the Membership and Communication Manager here for the association.
All right, thanks, folks. Did everybody have a chance to introduce yourselves? Because literally, as you talk, my screen popcorns, right? So that was caught everybody, hopefully. All right, so first on our agenda, for the first 15 minutes or so, introductions and updates. Suzanne, could you start us off with your Extension Food Safety Team updates, please?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Suzanne Dreesen with the University of Minnesota Extension Food Safety Team. Just to have some updates about some transition that's going to happen with food safety at Extension. I will be retiring as of February 1st, and then Kathy Brandt will be also retiring April 1st. So we're two food safety educators, do statewide programming, mostly in the area of food preparation, production, and so it's after the farm kind of things. So there are going to be postings for two replacements, two educators that should come up soon. So we'll look for this group to help advertise that and looking for some really great candidates. I just wanted to let you know that there is a transition plan in place to continue our online work. So all of our online courses, and also our online, web presence will remain. We do have the online cottage food safety course, and then also we have for certified food managers, we have 12 different modules that are approved for certified food manager certification. So we're working with MDA and MDH on making that transition as well. So those things will continue. And of course, we have Marina Malo, who is the liaison to the local food system. So she'll be a good support for you. And if you have questions, she can help you navigate that too during that transition. And most people I've worked with that are on this call today, so it's just been a joy. I've been with Extension for 25 years, so it's been really fun looking at the different, as I'm cleaning out my office and files and stuff, and all the different projects and programs and people I've worked with over the years. So looking forward to the new adventure. Is there any questions or anyone have any?
Can we vote against you retiring?
I know when I told my boss, Mike Schmidt, he's like, you don't want me to talk me you out of this. And I said, no, and it's like, when you've had enough, and when you've had enough, and when you have enough. So it's like, yep, that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, you have been a joy and a great asset to work with, Suzanne. We're going to miss you and Kathy. So thanks all.
Thank you.
Meeting. Next up, Jane, you want to talk about blazing trails? I don't see Annalisa on here, so hopefully, Val, can someone from your team then chime in on the FSMA and or GAP trainings? But Jane, you want to handle blazing trails?
Sure. So Blazing Trails, as many of you remember, was a SARE funded professional development program grant that we had a couple years ago to put together really long 4-hour trainings about food regulations for the sustainable ag and local food community. And that grant has ended. We haven't done any trainings for almost a year, but Kathy Zeman talked me into it, doing some more. We need more. So we're doing one on January 29th, late afternoon into evening, and then one on February 15th, middle of the day. I know MFMA has a press release ready to go out about those. And so help spread the word. We know there are folks we missed with the last round. We know there are folks who could use a refresher. There are some updates that have happened that change a few things in what we had in the original training. So we'll incorporate those, and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Jane. And I think we've already got like 25 people signed up for the 2 of those already. So that's kind of nice if people are interested. Who wants to take the FSMA and GAP training updates?
I can do that. This is Alex. Was just coordinating that with Val. So here's my answer. So I'll start with FSMA trainings, which are specific to the produce safety rule. These are typically the 1-day crash course and everything related to the produce safety rule. So we've got 3 English language trainings planned this spring. 2 of those will be online. One of those will be in person at Maple Grove. So Kristen would love to connect with you on that at some point. We also have a Spanish language virtual training, which I just have the registration link that I got 5 minutes ago. So the Spanish language training is virtual, 2 days, Saturdays in February. So I'll drop the links to all of this stuff in the chat once I'm done. But basically, there's a series of online and in-person options for produce safety rule trainings. Annalisa also has lots of different options for GAPS courses. So she's got, again, I'll drop more information on the chat, but she's got a series of options for GAPS courses, which I believe are either 3 or 4 hours, and Jane might also be able to chime in here. But GAPS courses provide kind of an orientation to good agricultural practices. So that's the basics of produce safety practices that aren't specific to the produce safety rule and produce safety standards. Annalisa also has online deep dive sessions that are on specific produce safety practices. So again, those are more in the GAPS realm of things and not specific to the produce safety rule. But I'll stop there. If anybody else on this call, including Val, wants to chime in, feel free to do so.
Thanks, Alex, for handling that. Next up, we have something from MDA on grants and cost shares. Emily Jervey, are you handling that one?
I am not sure.
Emily wanted to talk about the survey.
Yes,
Okay.
I did. Is that what this?
Yes, let's make that this now. Correct.
Okay, excellent. I have a couple of slides. Is it possible to share my screen?
Yep, hang on one second, Emily. I'll make you a co-host and then you should be
Okay.
able to. Sorry, I got to find you on the participant list and I have bifocals now. It's driving me crazy. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, now you should be able to share screen.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and Jane for squeezing me in. I am here to talk about the statewide cooperative partnerships, which many of you know about. This project has over 40 cooperative members, and it's led by Department of Agriculture as well as University of Minnesota with Hikaru Peterson. She is looking at market data. The Department of Ag has two prongs of this regulation with the produce safety program and promotion with the Minnesota Grown program. And this is a 3-year project funded by the USDA looking to really capture more data on local and regional markets. We understand that the NAS runs the census, but we have some need for supplemental information and data. So this project really is trying to really understand the community of local and regional markets in the state and really use that information to target our programs, Minnesota Grown program, pass information on to the relevant policymakers. We have, as I mentioned, over 40 organizations are part of this partnership. The slide has just a few of them, but not all, but representatives from nonprofits, we have institutions. This group has met quarterly for a year. The project team meets weekly, so there's robust communications. What I really wanted to let this group know of was we're entering baseline data collection in year 2. So year 1 was gathering what was known, doing a lit review, asset mapping. So year 2 is really where we're going to launch this survey, and February 11th is the date. So 1 month from today, there will be a lot of communications about this. So I think it's really important that this group reaches out to their stakeholders to get folks to participate in this survey. We have a very aggressive goal. 1,200, we want 1,200 surveys, 200 from the BIPOC community. It will be available in 4 languages. And then year 3, which will be in 2023, is data analysis and planning for the future. So this is really the nuts and bolts of data collection. We will be rolling this out the whole first half of the year. So once again, I just want to really implore this group to reach out to their members. If they hear the survey, if they have members that have questions, it will be available in paper. There will also be incentives to take the survey, monetary incentives in terms of gift cards. And there's actually two surveys. There's a shorter version and a longer targeted version. So please let me know if you have any questions, but we're really excited about this project. A lot of folks have done some great work, and it's a great partnership. So thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah. Now I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Emily. Any questions for Emily on that grant? Emily Reno has a question for you. Have you calculated what percentage of your target audience your goal represents, the 1,200? How'd you come up with that?
Oh, you know, that's a good question. Not necessarily. I guess the only thing I have to say on that number is for the Minnesota Grown program, we have about 1,200 members. And so we know that not every member will be taking the survey, but we want it to be as close to census-like as possible, if that makes sense. So this isn't a representative sample. We want to target as many producers in the state that we can.
Thanks, both Emily's there. Any other questions for Emily Jervey?
The Emily's are sticking together.
All right, thank you much. Folks on the call, anyone else have any announcements, trainings, updates you want to announce right now in this section? You can unmute and let us know. All right, then we're moving on to Wendy Spanier had asked if we couldn't have a couple of farmers market vendors and our market managers talk about how they thrived during COVID. And so Kirsten Banson-Weigel from Maple Grove Farmers Market and Jess Joyce from the Rochester Farmers Market are now going to tell us how their markets did. Kirsten, you're going to kick us off. And do you need share screen?
That would be great, Kathy. Thank you.
Yep, I just made both of you screen share enabled. So
okay, I'll go ahead and share. Oh my goodness, I thought I was ready. Let's see if I can. Okay, are you seeing my great big logo?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, I want to thank this group first. We know, though, you know, from a distance, we know that your collaboration and your hard work is making a real difference for our producers. So thank you for that. And I just kind of strung together a series of images to try to show you what the last 2 years have been like on site for us at the farmers market. So so this is just a brief introduction. We are the Maple Grove Farmers Market. We're an initiative of the city of Maple Grove. And this is a little slide from our annual sponsor appeal, just to give you a sense of our presence and scope in this community. We're about 45 vendors each week. We are a weekday market, as are many of the markets that are hosted by local government here in the Twin Cities. Thursday is our day. We welcomed 41,000 adult shoppers in 2021. That's a rebound from 2020 when we counted every single shopper, not just adults, and we estimated about 40,000 over the course of our year. The rest is just some blah blah about our marketing and communications efforts, but that gives you a sense of kind of where we fall in the size of markets. So this is a photo from 2019, taken actually from on top of our community center where we're located. And you can see that the market is busy. We are located in a parking lot here at the community center. And under our normal operations, the only areas that we close off are these vehicle access points, and that's for safety. We don't normally have one designated entry point. So customers flow in over, if you could see over to the far right, we have a large customer parking area. So most folks come in from the north or from the far right in your picture. This photo is sort of approximately looking west, but they do flow in from all different sides of the market, and they circulate as they will. They kind of ping around. So this is kind of a normal pre-COVID photo for us. And this is after the zombie apocalypse. This is our very first outdoor market that we hosted in April 2020. Thanks to the leadership of this group and the MFMA and many others, we missed only one farmers market through this whole COVID period, and that was late March 2020, when everything had just shut down. But we quickly pivoted and hosted the two markets for April 2020 that we had planned indoors. We hosted them outside. So you can kind of see there's a variety of Minnesota appropriate wear here for a cold early spring day in early April, from t-shirts to parkas. So that's this was our very first shot. And then by the end of the season, this is, I think, maybe September-ish, a shot of a COVID market in 2020. You can see very few masks at that point. But you can also see a little bit, we had to pivot to enclosing the full span of the market, and we had 2 entry and exit points that were available to our customers. We kept continual counts of the customers in the market to stay under that 250 customer mark. And we did enforce one-way customer traffic in the market, which was new for folks. We actually really liked it, most of us, because it really made sure that all the customers went past every vendor. So was kind of a unique and unexpected benefit of some of the changes that we had to make. This is a cute photo of 2 of our longtime sort of super fans at the farmers market greeting each other from afar. So in terms of the additional resources that we needed to get through that first year, we did buy some entrance flags, some additional signage. We should have bought stock in sidewalk chalk because we used really a lot of sidewalk chalk. But because our market is only one afternoon a week, we needed sort of temporary solutions for signage. We couldn't leave signage out. We had to redo all of our directional stuff whenever needed. So sidewalk chalk was a good solution for us. So folks entered, and I can talk a little bit more about how we counted in a few minutes, but this was our very first go at enclosing this whole very large market space. So this is what it looks like. I should have gone back and peeked at the square footage, but it is a very large parking lot. So the first couple of weeks, we used this sort of rickety construction zone look. It was a ton of work for us and for our park keeper support staff that we are fortunate to be able to work with. We soon realized that this was not sustainable, and also people just ducked under these ropes. So we actually bit the bullet and rented for the whole season this event barricade that interlocked, and we were able to leave it up in big portions of our parking lot next to the curb all summer. So then our park keepers only had to pivot and move little bits of it during the season. This was a huge cost center, and we just decided that it was either that or close the market. We felt that we didn't have any choice but to go ahead and make this decision to rent the barricade. We got a good deal because we work with the contractor for other city projects. And as it turns out, we were able to access CARES funding through the city to be able to finance that, but it was a bit of a gamble. It looked really slick. It made us look super uptown, so we liked that. This again is another shot of our entrance People came in, we had some signage, some hand sanitizer. Somebody left their smoothie there. And then we did do a lot of messaging with our customers about keeping our census low. So we are a family outing. We prided ourselves on being that for many years, but we encourage people to leave their families at home, just bring 1 or 2 shoppers per household, just to make sure that we didn't have to close off access when we reached our customer count limits. So we had staff or volunteers counting every entrance and every exit of every single human being. And we logged those every 10 to 15 minutes in a spreadsheet that would then give us our net number of shoppers who were in the market. I think we had to create a waiting line on 3 dates. So it wasn't too bad, and people were pretty accommodating. They were pretty kind about that. Normally we rely on tight spacing and kind of narrow aisles to create a customer experience that feels very high energy and very welcoming and cheerful. We have a fantastic farmers market community, very, very cheerful, very upbeat people. Obviously, we could not do that. So our spacing left at least a full parking space in between each vendor tent. And then we had to utilize some portable stanchions and some other strategies to keep people from cutting between the vendor tents. So we did what we could with sidewalk chalk and signs and other strategies to try to welcome people. Vendors were asked to pivot as well to make some changes, including this brilliant idea that I think originated with the St. Paul Farmers Market to just put an extra vendor table in front of their display in order to guarantee that 6-foot distancing. A lot of our vendors really ended up liking this because customers were less likely to sort of paw through all of the items that were for sale, and they could display some extra signage. So we created some of these and gave them to our vendors, how to shop the farmers market, a guide to social distancing back when that was a novel concept for all of us. We also had to make some changes in terms of our dedicated sponsors. Our market is fortunate to receive its staffing support and many other good things from the city of Maple Grove. But we do work extensively to create sponsor agreements with businesses and organizations within the city that help us to run special programming at the market. So these sponsors had been slated to support our live music programming, which runs every week at the market. They were grateful, and we were grateful that they were willing to kind of pivot to becoming what we called safe at the market or something like that, sponsors that enabled us to rent these portable hand wash stations for the season. These were just exponentially a million times better than the little homemade ones that we had, and kind of helped us to streamline our operations. Another thing that we decided early on, and you'll hear really exciting things from Jess about what other markets decided, but we decided early on that we needed to adjust our operations in order to continue to be a traditional in-person farmers market. We didn't feel that an online or an aggregated market was what the city is looking for. And so we decided to take all the strategies we could to mitigate risk and hunker down and get through as an in-person farmers market. And for us, we felt that that gamble really paid off. One silver lining was that our customers were really very highly motivated, and even our vendors were highly motivated to really understand the messaging and the information that we were putting out. So though we never did move toward aggregation, we did publish every week a pre-order list. Vendors were able to let us know what they had available for pre-order and how customers could contact them. And so we just set that up as a Google Doc that was easily updatable, and we promoted it every week. Customers could then go directly to their favorite vendors, pre-order for easy, quick pickup at the market. And we did, there was a lot of interest in that in early 2020, especially I'd say the first half of the season. So this is another example of just one of the signboards we needed to create at various times during the 2020 season. Sampling was allowed or not allowed, eating was allowed or not allowed. And so we just kept a close eye on that with the help of this group and the MFMA. One of our biggest challenges was, and again, it had a huge silver lining. This whole thing really helped us, I think, helped me to see the market as a set of building blocks. So we really had to take everything apart and reassemble it and figure out how we continued to do what we needed to do, but in different ways than we had always done it. So of course, that can always be a positive experience. It did involve quite a bit of change and required us to dig, just to work really hard at communications with all of our stakeholders. So this is actually a photo of the entry to our temporary indoor farmers market space that we used in the fall and again in the spring of 2020 and 2021. Our traditional home is here at the Maple Grove Community Center, which was closed due to the 2020 COVID surge. And so we were able to use this local retail space that was very big, very airy, very sparkly, but it required us to reprogram our shoppers to come someplace different, to find us there in a different place, park in a different place. You know, vendors were not in the same order they had always been in. People get very attached to their habits. So in the fall, we continued to host markets on Thursdays. In the spring, we actually had to move to Sundays because that was the only day that was available. So then not only were we in a new place, we were in a new day and time slot, which blew a lot of people's minds. So really required us to become better communicators. And then of course, when we moved back here, we had to do it all over again because we had started to work with new customers who had never found us here before. And then we had to convince them to follow us to the community center. So this is a photo from our wonderful volunteer photographer who actually took most of these photos that you're seeing today. And it represents how I felt about 2021 at the farmers market. If 2020 was difficult, at least we had the advantage of novelty, I think, and of people feeling grateful that we were still there. Markets had, I think, a huge advantage in that we were kind of the only game in town. So eating healthy, eating locally, cooking more, that's always on everybody's sort of good resolution list. But people really actually got down to doing it when all of their kids' activities were canceled and they were officed from home. And it just felt really good, you know, so we were kind of a feel-good outlet for people in 2020, even with all the changes we had to make. But in 2021, everything was open again with an added layer of stress, uncertainty, confusion. And so we were back to all of our programming, including live music at the market, including our popular frequent shopper program and our Power Produce. which enables us to work with wonderful volunteers like these two, but requires volunteer management. At the same time, we were dealing with all of the uncertainty about regulations and kind of a lack of a statewide guiding presence for how we handled public health issues. In the vacuum of that statewide mandate, everybody, as you probably all have experienced in your own lives, became an expert. And we had a lot of our vendors, customers, stakeholders who really were eager to tell us how we should be doing our jobs. So that created quite a bit of stress during the season. We also had some unexpected COVID-related things as the season went on. We had to really refresh our understanding of free speech issues at the market. This was a promotion that one of our vendors ran. They are very, very highly involved and passionate about sort of natural immunity, and wanted to reward people who would be featured in their social media feed at our market as resisting vaccines. So they didn't tell us about this, but we kind of got wind of it a couple of days before it happened. So we worked with our city attorney to understand what our options were. Our vendor guidelines state that all the signage in a vendor's booth really needs to be restricted to promoting products that are available at the market. So that was kind of our saving grace. We don't allow any solicitation, any proselytizing, and signage needs to be related to the product or the business. So this is kind of where we came down on this. They were able to display this, ask me how to get a free kombucha. And if the person asked and was willing, then they went out back behind their van and they held the person could hold up the anti-vax sign and have a picture taken. But they did agree. They were very reasonable about not tagging our market or identifying any customers or anything like that. So just a lot of kind of stuff out of left field that we dealt with this year. Our goal at Maple Grove is always profitable farms and food businesses. We find that if we put the vendors first, all of our other goals fall right in line after that. So with that in mind, what really worked for us during this 2-year pandemic period to date was we're just fortunate to be part of the city of Maple Grove and to benefit from all of the different elements of infrastructure that gives us access to. Guidance from the Minnesota Farmers Market Association and their advocacy for markets and our ability to stay open even during the times when things were really difficult and unclear. Collaboration with other markets, the trust of our vendors and shoppers, this huge reemergence of people pursuing quarantine hobbies like cooking and gardening and nutrition. We ultimately had access to CARES funding through the city, which helped us quite a bit. And then the Safe at the Market grants through the MDA were a big help as well. I just wanted to thank this group and state government in general for this new emphasis on building capacity in the meat processing sector. That's something that we've been struggling with for years. And so it's very exciting to see that coming online now. And then the steadfast work of existing marketing groups like Minnesota Grown and new efforts like the Farm Direct Minnesota Facebook page has really helped people to find us when they are distracted by many other issues of the day. So I would say that the challenges in being kind of on the front lines, coordinating the market, are just the constant pivots and the organizational challenges that I know that all market managers have experienced in very different ways, depending on how their market is incorporated or who sort of takes ownership of the market. We really feel in an ongoing way that we continue to have this need for enhanced communication. People want to know exactly what to expect. And yet when you put that communication out there, people are so tired and confused that they just can't even take it all in. So this is not a problem that's unique to the work that we're doing. I think it's happening everywhere, including in public health and elsewhere, but it is a huge challenge. In 2021, sponsorship dollars were severely restricted, which impacted our bottom line. And then this next one is kind of a something that we saw also after the housing recession. A lot of people seem to be pursuing new food businesses. They seem to want to get into farmers markets. They have either changed jobs, started their own business, decided to pursue a passion. But at the same time that that is happening, I am a little concerned that our increased customer, our moment in the sun with customers has passed, right? Customers are now really worried about whether their kids' schools are open, and they're worried about trying to make up for all the lost time and the vacations they missed and the activities that they missed. And so customers are distracted right when we're seeing a huge influx of new vendors. So we really just need to figure out how to convert more food shoppers to local food shoppers. And then difficulty finding volunteers and part-time staff has definitely been on our radar during the pandemic as well. These are just some ideas that I wanted to share with you in terms of the needs of markets. I think some of you might know the National Farmers Market Coalition's motto is markets don't just happen. Market organizers have to cover a lot of ground. We have to be sort of expert enough in a lot of different areas. And so promotional resources to help us create new customers and retain our customers, I've always thought that that is our greatest need. And then I'm personally very excited about programming to train and support brand new farmers and food makers who are selling direct at markets. There's no reason that people can't be trained how to do this and increase their likelihood of success. I think for many years, it took me a long time to understand that people don't just have to learn through the School of Hard Knocks, that we can do a lot of things to provide resources and training to them to smooth their entry into farmers markets. And then the tools and streamlining of regulatory and licensing standards have been really helpful. It's just in my time over these last 14 or so seasons in markets, it's become more and more transparent, easier for us to understand, easier for us to access the records of our vendors so that we know that they're appropriately licensed. And I know that this group has had a lot to do with that. And that is my report from the front lines. So I think we were going to take questions later, but thank you for this opportunity.
Kirsten, that was great. Thank you. We're going to go right to Jess, and then we'll take questions from the two of them when Jess is done with Rochester's.
Okay, let me figure out how to unshare my screen.
I think I can just take it over. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna try and share this screen.
Oh, yay, good job.
Does that work?
Yes, Jess, we can see it.
Super. Yeah, I'm gonna run this just like Kirsten did from this view mode, but you can pause me if you're having any trouble seeing anything. So anyway, my name is Jess Joyce. I'm presenting, this is gonna be the very early response compared to Kirsten gave a 2-year perspective over 2020 and 2021. And this presentation is really about our pivot response in just those first few weeks that COVID took over the world as we know it. And then the thanks for this project goes to the Farmers Market Hub project, who Jane and Kathy have been a long time involved in, and I think there are other folks on the call who are responsible for this coming into being as well. So for some context for the Rochester Farmers Market, we are a vendor-owned association. So we're organized as a nonprofit that's run by the independent businesses, a board of directors. Throughout the year, the market is made up of over 100 small businesses. But we shift fairly heavily in the winter season to an indoor farmers market. So that's the picture you can see here on this slide. When I was running this market in early 2020, that indoor market had between 28 to 30 vendors every week. Every vendor brought home a gross of about 400 to 1,400 at each market. I was the only full-time staff person. So I was full-time, I was salaried. And then I had 2 or 3 staff that worked with me on weekends and a variety of volunteers that were in and out at these markets. So again, this is that feel we were trying to cultivate of a bustling commercial space that we really needed to reevaluate in those first couple weeks. And then I also wanted to emphasize that as the market manager for this market, I was accountable to a board of directors. So this is the board from March 2020, a set of wonderful folks, but you can imagine that they're bringing not only decades of experience farming, but experience managing and running the market. This photo was taken right after we decided in February 2020 to relocate our summer farmers market to a new location. So a big exciting time. And I guess I also wanted to give these folks credit because as the market manager, you're this nexus of all of the independent businesses that make up your market, the customer base that's coming out, and then all of the relevant authorities. So when we started to get new information very rapidly, I had to go to this group of people and we had to make decisions quickly. So Kirsten went over this a little bit, but I wanted to give credit to MFMA and the Department of Agriculture. In that middle weeks of March, a critical milestone, a critical moment was that the Department of Agriculture agreed that farmers markets were grocery stores. And that key decision was what allowed us to pivot so quickly and to focus on our responsibility to provide the community with fresh, healthy food options. And this came at a time, you probably remember, where it was hard to get anything at any store. It was especially hard to get fresh food from grocery stores. So as the market manager, my role here was to decide what our decision would be, and then to communicate it as clearly as possible with everyone involved. So we made a decision that middle week of March to remain open. And in order to do that, we needed to make some major changes to the market itself. And then we had an exciting opportunity come up where we were also able to offer online ordering and a low contact or no contact option for customers who didn't feel safe shopping and vendors who may or may not have felt safe selling at the market. In order to make that decision, we relied on guidance from the Department of Ag. We relied heavily on our local officials, both the Department of Health and then the county space leadership. We were at a county facility, and at that point, Ulster County had closed all operations throughout town and listed us as an exception to that closure. And then as far as guidance and support, we received help from the Minnesota Farmers Market Association, Department of Ag and Health, Renewing the Countryside, the Food Hub program, and then our affiliated nonprofit, the Friends of the Farmers Market, who represent customers in the community. So here's what we did for our indoor farmers market. I regret that no one is wearing masks in any of these photos. I don't know if anyone recalls, but that was weeks, if not months, before universal mask guidance was available. So for especially this first week, we emphasized physical distancing, hand washing, and then, as Kirsten mentioned, trying to change up our messaging from like, this is a place to gather, to we need to get our groceries and go home. Another cool collaboration, we reached out to the medical school here in town who had closed their doors. The students were working from home. And we mentioned that we needed help monitoring traffic in the market and sanitizing surfaces and opening and closing the doors so folks didn't have to touch those surfaces. So that was a neat collaboration with the medical school. Here's a nice picture that shows the one quality hand wash station that we had. That's the gray one in the back, compared to the homemade ones. We had volunteers step up and put together, I think, 8 to 10 hand wash stations in the first week so that we would have a place to sanitize. And then on the right in this photo is our staff booth. I don't know, I'm sure most of you are aware that farmers markets support or can support the SNAP programs, folks who are using those benefits, and also offer a matching market bucks. So early on, there was some concern that we shouldn't be using a token system and wouldn't be able to offer that service. But I believe we were able to maintain the SNAP market bucks program all the way through. So that's my couple of slides on our indoor market and staying open the first week. And then just a quick summary of the online ordering system. So this project was a wonderful brainchild that came out of a project we'd been involved with the Farmers Market Hub project for a few years to use the market as an aggregator of farmers' products. So that Farmers Market Food Hub project was supported by a USDA specialty crop block grant and some of the organizations I've mentioned before. The way that it works economically is that farmers list their products in on an aggregation platform in any kind of area where they can list products and list a price. Then there's a markup applied to that price, which is passed on to the consumer. So that was the way our hub was set up. The market was licensed through the Department of Ag as a food handler. And the farmers were all setting their own prices, their own quantities for the products that were listed. Another benefit to this setup is that we could use the existing market time and space. Our biggest resource limitations had to do with setup and staffing and all of the pre-work and post-work that went into using this system. We were fortunate to have an online platform available. This was through the Hub program. So we were using a platform called Local Line, which was a subscription service. It was actually fairly astonishing to reach out. I sent an email to our vendor list of 100 vendors and asked them if they'd be interested in trying a pilot of this online store. And the response I got back from that in the first few weeks of the pandemic was enormous. So we were onboarding vendors, we were directing customers to this new store, we were figuring out how to put photos on the online platform. And all of that was able to come to life, I think, in like 10 days before our first day open. So the next is just a few series of photos of those first few weeks of the indoor market. This program perpetuated throughout 2020. But we needed a way for customers to access a drive-through space. We converted about a third of the market into tables where we were laying out custom orders. We needed to ensure traceability of products. So there was a numbering system for vendors to label their products and that to end up in customer baskets. We got sponsors to offer bags to put the product in. We were changing the rules or learning new rules for how things should be packaged in that first week. There's Brett, who's on the call directing traffic. We, as Kirsten mentioned, customers did an amazing job of reading the communication we sent out. We needed customers to know their order number, and if they were concerned about sharing airspace or wanted a truly no contact drop off, they could display their order number with their car window closed as they came up. This is the little army of volunteers. We needed those first few weeks to direct traffic and acquire orders and keep things clean and sanitized, and just keep track of the number of orders that we received. There's a customer showing us that she read her email and had her order number ready. Another photo of some volunteers collecting the orders. It was never perfect. We would do this throughout the day, and then we'd end up at the end of the market calling phone numbers like, hey, we mixed up an order. Can we drop it off at your house? So it was an amazing amount of collaboration and creativity that went into kicking this off. Cold storage. I heard a couple folks on the call who could probably give me many lessons in the requirements for safe cold storage of food. That was another thing we had to figure out. And then of course the market needed to be licensed. We needed policies in place. We needed to worry about insurance. We needed a new accounting system. So there were lots of challenges associated with it, but I just wanted to share a couple questions that we asked our customers. Most of the folks who participated in this program were already regular customers of the market. The majority of them, a vast majority, said that they would not have shopped at the market if this option wasn't available. And then 98% said that they would try it again. So in those first few weeks, it was an amazingly successful system. And I think that there's some lessons learned here that could be useful to farmers markets in the future as well. There you go. That was my whirlwind tour. Thanks all.
Jess, thank you very much. All right, you've heard from Maple Grove and Rochester on how they managed through COVID. Any questions for them? And you can imagine, folks, this happened across the state at hundreds of farmers markets to different degrees of success and trial and error. Any questions, folks?
This is Emily Reno. I've just got one question. And this comes from just having gotten off a call where we were talking about like both federal funds, there being a surplus, well, not a surplus, but there's going to be a lot of money, right, that's sort of coming to communities. And then also we were talking about the state's budget and the surplus, and like how as planning professionals do we help prepare communities to handle that additional, funding that might be coming their way. And I would just be curious to know, of the needs that both of you, the presenters, sort of expressed, what do you feel like would be the best use of additional dollars that could help support the sustainability of the work that you do?
I can try to give an answer. I have only ever worked for the Maple Grove Farmers Market in my time with markets, and Maple Grove pays its staff, and I just cannot imagine sustaining a strong market without paid staff. So anything that funders or planners or influencers can do to plant seeds of the value of farmers markets, I think especially with local and county government organizations, to have markets embedded at that level. It's not perfect, but it's pretty slick, and it really provides a great, healthy, inclusive way to support very small businesses. So I would say, from my standpoint, there just isn't any replacement for having the stability that comes with paid staff.
I also want to echo the comment about stability. My experience running the market and acquiring funding for all sorts of things is that it's often easy to grant or to find a sponsor for short-term projects or quick things that are easy to acquire and display or that last, like the hand wash station. Those things are easy, but things that help us sustain staffing over time are so important.
Thanks, Emily, for the question, and thank you to Jess and Kirsten. Sadie has a question for either market. Are there any practices that you adopted for COVID that will be used moving forward? And then Jess, for you, did the online ordering option attract new customers? And I'd add on to that, do you think you held on to them?
So I can speak to the online ordering to some extent. So we actually did not find that was the case. And I think Kirsten did a good job of explaining why that could be. I think that farmers markets have, as part of their mission, the gathering of community. And so while the Rochester market's online option was very successful, I think one of the most successful in the state, that program only lasted about 18 months. And the reason that I think we ended up terminating it is that we needed to focus on that mission of gathering people together. And when we weren't able to find enough new customers who didn't also want to attend the in-person market. if that makes sense. So I think there's a lot of viability to the online option, but you would need to find those new customers and they would need to want to stick with the online option.
Kirsten, yeah, what about any COVID practices that you're going to hang on to?
Well, we will certainly always have soap and water hand wash stations on site. We should have always, we should have always had a better solution for that, but now we do, so that's good. And I don't, I'm struggling to think of other specific strategies, but I will say I don't think we'll ever do anything the same again. I don't think we'll ever unlearn what we learned about we really had to focus on providing detailed written information in advance to our vendors every week for a number of weeks, especially in 2020, to help them know what to expect. And that reduced the amount of friction on our farmers market days exponentially. So we do a lot more pre-organizing. I don't think we ever really were in a market that winged it, but in some ways, I guess we kind of did. So now I really see a successful market day is one where everybody knows what to expect when they get there, and that we are only handling problems that bubble up during the day, as they will when you're dealing with human creatures. So I think enhanced communications, enhanced focus on signage will both always be with us.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, Kirsten, Jess, thank you so much. And good luck. Good luck, folks. Then it's 2:05, and on our schedule, it says we can either do overruns or take a break. So I'm going to say we're going to take a 5-minute break, and everybody take a 5-minute break and be back here at 2:10 when we'll talk with Wendy about food donation activities. I sound like a talk show host. 5 minutes, and we'll be back with Wendy. Cindy Weckworth joined us. Cindy, you want to say hi to folks here?
Hi, everyone. Cindy Weckworth with City of Minneapolis. I'm just from school, but I'm listening.
All right. Anyone else join us this afternoon that hasn't been on earlier? Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Greg Swayzer with Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships. I was a little late, sorry, but here I am.
Always welcome. Anyone else?
Hi, sorry, it's Lori Cox. I came late. Sorry about that.
Hi, Shelley Erickson. I was on a different meeting. Sorry, I'm late.
Hi, this is Heather Mahoney. I joined a little late as well. I'm from AUA and the Rutabaga Project up here in Virginia, Minnesota.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Wendy, this is all about MDH food donation activities. Jane had listed some of the issues that have come up, in the last few months or so. And you sent out a document that I have not yet read. So very helpful, I know.
Well, actually, that's good that you brought that up, because the document I sent out, when everyone has a chance to read it, we would welcome any feedback on it. Just one note that there has been a change in stats. So one thing that was added in 2021 was in response to COVID. It's allowing for delivery and pickup of the foods related to the place of worship exemption. So that's one change we'll be making with that change in the statute language, and then that affects one of the frequently asked questions that's included. But if you see anything else in the document that you have a question on or that you think needs to be changed, just let me know, because that's one of the documents that we're a little bit behind in getting some of our things updated. So we were busy with the food code fact sheets, and now we have a list of, we also have 4 other programs in addition to food. So this one is on the list to be updated.
So Wendy, this is Angie. I just wanted to clarify that the link to the document in the agenda is actually a food donation guide that was done in 2020. And what Wendy is talking about is the church religious exemption. So
Yeah,
I don't know if that was shared with the group.
Yes, that's actually the one that I had sent out to everyone.
So I would suggest, unless anyone has a better idea, let's take the points one by one. So COVID sparked creativity in many of us, and MDH's fact sheet refers to on-site feeding programs, but there have been a lot of delivery programs popping up. Wendy, can you clarify if there are any differences in the requirements when ready-to-eat food is delivered to homes rather than served at a site?
And I don't know that there would necessarily be different requirements according to the food code, but it does add another layer of complexity. So there's other things for the person in charge and the certified food protection manager to be aware of. How is the food being protected when it's delivered? You know, is it packaged individually, or how is that working out? How are hot foods maintained hot and the cold foods maintained cold? And you know, who are the people who are delivering it? So these are all aspects of the business that they would need to be aware of and manage those factors.
Any follow-up questions on that one or any clarification on that point?
This is Jane. Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, and that question was in reference to that link to the food donation document of what food is allowed to be donated and not donated. And with some of the delivery schemes that I've become aware of, there may be some home prepared food being delivered as part of a feeding scheme. And so that's a concern, because the food donation document that lists you know, allowed food says no cottage food, no home prepared food, but it also doesn't even talk about the delivery option. It talks about on-site. So when you need to use that document to talk to people about a delivery option and they're thinking about home prepared food, there's nothing specifically in there that calls that out. So that's why we're calling it out here today.
Yeah, I mean, we've become aware of, you know, over the years, we've always, you know, there's different times when we've become aware of home prepared foods being advertised in different social media platforms, whatever. Right now we've got, I can think of 3 different cases where we are just in the process of doing enforcement involving some home prepared food situations. So it does pop up occasionally, but home prepared food is not part of that discussion, I guess.
Thanks, Wendy. The next point is discuss the boundaries of religious exemption in the context of making and serving or delivering hot meals.
Yeah, several questions under here. Just for some background, we have 15 exemptions in our statute, the Minnesota Department of Health Statute 157. And the one exemption that we're specifically talking about here is the place of worship exemption. And the first question was, is a certified food protection manager required under the religious exemption if food service to the public occurs on a regular basis? Just to pick this apart a little bit, a certified food protection manager is not required. It's just required that there be someone trained in food safety. Of course, The classes under the Certified Food Protection Manager are great, and we encourage that. But any classes that involve food safety, and then it's expected that the person who is trained in food safety gets that knowledge onto the other people involved in the food service. And then is the religious exemption covering food service on a regular basis? You know, as long as the food service is taking place in the place of worship or on their grounds, we're not licensing or regulating that business or that food service that's taking place there. Is there something, and I'm not sure if this was a specific question that came to you, Jane, or did you have, are you thinking of a specific occurrence? Was this just a general question you had?
There are some specific occurrences, yeah. So, yeah, there are some sponsoring entities that are doing food service, food delivery types of things in the context of nutrition support for the community. But, the house of worship's kitchen is being used, but the entity kind of running it isn't the congregation.
And again, the exemption is specifically stating that if it's taking place in the building or on the grounds of the place of worship. So we are not licensing or overseeing those. Although in many cases, we have places of worship are coming to us and wanting to be licensed. It's not uncommon for us to have places go through plan review and request the license. So that's another situation where if there's a school on site, if they have a daycare on site, or if they choose to be licensed, those are the three instances where the licensure and regulatory work would take place. I think, does that answer those first two, Jane?
I think so. Yeah, I'm trying to take notes and think at the same time, and it's not working so well. So if anybody else wants to ask clarifying questions, please go ahead. But yeah,
I'll go on to the next one then. What if a religious congregation or multiple congregations sponsor and supervise the food preparation, but the food prep doesn't take place at a house of worship? I think that's when our license would kick in, because again, it specifically states that it's taking place at the place of worship or on their grounds. And then the last question was, what if volunteers not affiliated with a religious body do the food delivery? This has come up in several instances. I don't believe that we've licensed those situations. Again, unless they have requested a license, there might be a situation where in order to have their funding, to keep their funding sources in some situations, they might need to be licensed. There might be some requirement with that. So that would be a case where, again, they would choose to be licensed, and we would do that.
I have a question. This is Heather. I know we've been given a lot of information that can kind of help us maybe guide what's not real good and what's not real legal, and what's the best way to handle when you find out this is happening, because it's such a, it becomes such an important part of helping the community, and then if it's not being handled appropriately, it just gets a little messy. So what is the best way to handle it if you think that something isn't necessarily on the up and up?
Are you saying if you're seeing practices that are unsafe, that what you would do with that?
Yep.
I guess if you would feel comfortable, obviously we would be able to have that conversation. If you would want to contact the health department, we could definitely call whoever's in charge and have a discussion about food safety with them. They are required to have somebody trained in food safety and be following, food food safety practices. So we could definitely take a look at that, even though we don't license that entity.
Wendy, is it true, do both MDA and MDH have a anonymous reporting portal on your websites in case somebody sees something and they would like to report something?
Yes, yes. We do take complaints in anonymously. We have a website, or excuse me, email address that someone can send a complaint into. You can also call us anonymously. Jeff, I don't want to speak for you, but
yeah, that's okay. Yeah, definitely. Hey, everybody, Jeff Ludeman, Retail Food Program Manager, MDA. Yeah, we have an online, our website has an intake, a complaint intake. We have an email for our compliance. Certainly can take phone calls. I can keep it anonymous, but so yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Any other questions, folks, for this particular thing as you see things, as you see silver linings and creativity because of COVID and just because? Anything else you're seeing you have questions about on the ready to eat kind of food service and beverages side? Or egg, but. Angie posted, good, yep.
So there's a question from Lori. What's the expectation that a place of worship would be exempt, and how did this come about in history? And I know I wasn't involved in the legislation. I mean, it's not something that MDH move forward. It was something that was moved forward at the legislature. So I don't really know the history. I don't know if Wendy, if you have any of the history on how it came about, but
Yes,
that's how our
actually,
exemptions happen, is somebody gets to somebody in the legislature and they add an exemption.
Yeah, actually, I've been around, I think, for most of these exemptions, the 15 exemptions that we have. This one in particular came about, I think it was 2011, and it was in relation to some church activities and a legislative, someone in the legislature was wanting to exempt all places of worship. And we worked with them to at least make sure that there was some level of food safety knowledge being imparted. And we've, over the years, we've done training for cooking for a crowd, some of those things that would be specifically geared towards the volunteer type situations that takes place in many of the places of worship. And so that was how that one exemption came about. And a lot of times when the language for the statute change is introduced, then we have the opportunity to work with the legislator and hopefully get some things negotiated so that we at least have some level of food safety involved in the final language.
Good question, Lori, and thanks Angie and Alex for putting in the links to both MDH's and MDA's online complaint form, so folks can use those if you need to. Any other last questions? All right, I counted those 20 awkward silent seconds, right, to make sure that we cleared questions. So Wendy, thanks very much. Next up is a discussion on cottage food. So we're moving from H to A. And I'm adding a little bit. If Maureen, if you are available, we could have you kick this little discussion off with talking to us about the grant that you are working on for cottage food.
Yes, very quickly, and hopefully Baby will be quiet while I do it. Thanks to all of the discussions that you have been very kind to allow me the time to have over the last 2 years of my project, we were able to put together a proposal to the Healthy Food, Healthy Lives grant last year. And we were awarded, and by we, I mean myself and my PI, Dr. Ubing, who's the department head in food science and nutrition department. We were awarded a little over $140,000 over a 2-year period to bring in a graduate student who will be starting this spring. And we're specifically looking at 2 products, banana bread and zucchini bread. And again, this was informed by the discussions we've had over the years. And we are looking to do 2 things. So one, we are hoping to see if we can reduce the amount of sugar content in the banana bread recipe. If you have indulged banana bread, you know that it has very high sugar and fat content. So that will be essentially a product development project. We'll be redesigning that recipe to see if we can get the sugar content down even by just 25%. We'll see what the numbers turn out to be at the end of the project. The other thing we are hoping to do is to reduce the amount of moisture in the fruit and vegetable inclusion type baked products. So if you think about zucchini bread, banana bread, carrot bread, anytime you add carrot cake, sorry, anytime you add fruits and vegetables into a baked product, you increase the moisture content. And that then makes a product not allowable on the Cottage food producer list of non-potentially hazardous products. So that's essentially what the project will be. There will be a technical side, of course, the bench research, but I'm hoping that with your continued engagement, if you can indulge us a little longer, I'll be coming back to different groups, different individuals over the next 2 years, requesting that you share with us your ideas, your time, helping our graduate student get to learn a little bit more about community research, but also trying to reinvest in community research from a food science and extension perspective. So a lot of you have been hoping that this would happen. And let's see what the next 2 years can bring. If you have any suggestions or questions in relation to the project specifically, or with our renewed commitment to working in the community, please feel free to email me or call me. Thank you for your time. And it was really nice to see everyone again this year.
Thank you, Maureen. I'm back, rural broadband issues, as always. All right, first, the first item here under cottage food, the popcorn shop in New Hope that got media attention, national media attention, and then got shut down. MDA or Hennepin County or Cindy Weckworth, who wants to handle this question? Because I'm fairly certain that packaged popcorn is allowed under cottage food. And so anybody have any, because maybe the news story wasn't quite accurate here, but anybody know what happened in this case?
Hey, Kathy, Jeff here. I think, the specifics of this case, we would need the local jurisdiction. I believe this was Hennepin County to speak on the specifics, if applicable. Yeah, anyway, I'll pause there. Yep. See if any additional questions.
Is anyone on from Hennepin County Health? All right. Okay, this one we'll have to table until we get some input, because that seemed to be kind of a contradiction there, to do that one. Yes, Jeff?
Hang on, Kathy. This is Jane, and I just want to weigh in for a second, because I read the news reports, and what it looked like was that the popcorn shop owner was making a product that would have been allowed under cottage food, but wasn't selling it out of his home or at a community event. It was being sold out of a little retail shop, which isn't part of the cottage food laws. So that's what I got out of the news report. And I wonder if Shelley knows any more. Shelley Erickson.
Yeah, Jennifer actually spoke with him also, and he was supposed to get back to her and give her a little bit more details, but it sounds like that what you just said is accurate. He wasn't selling it. He was making it at home, but he wasn't selling it from his home, which that's where he got in had a bit of a discrepancy.
Thanks, Shelley. All right. I think the next question has come up before, so it's kind of the sticky wicket. We continually get questions about, what really does constitute a community event? And is there any interest from MDA in working on language to define a community event for addition to statute? Also, and we know that community event is being defined somewhat differently between H and ag, between health and ag, even though cottage food is under ag. And we know that different cities are doing different definitions of community event, which for the people, for we the people, that's really confusing and leads to a lot of consternation amongst the group. So anyone want to weigh in on that one?
Kathy, Jeff here. Yeah, I mean, as you know, the MDA, we've had a working definition of community event for a good number of years. We've shared that with our delegated agencies. And I would just say at this time, the agency itself is not planning any initiative in this way and changing any of the technical information in cottage food law. But most certainly, if there are concerns, any feedback on this, any other entity wants to initiate, say, legislative proposal, by all means. But the MDA is not planning on doing that.
This is Wendy from MDH. We don't have any desire to define or add a definition for community event. And I don't know that I'm just trying to think of a recent issue that came up concerning that definition. I think the one problem that you end up when you try to define something and make it so black and white, you end up causing some unintended consequences and excluding some things that I just think that sometimes you create more problems when you try to make things very black and white. That's just my feeling, and I just know that right now MDH doesn't have any desire to add the language to define that.
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
Shelley. Go ahead.
So we have a lot of cottage food producers who are very confused by what exactly the definition of community event is, and they get told multiple different things from multiple different sources. And I personally would just like to see it simplified. We know that cottage food producers can't sell, they have to sell directly to the end consumer. And it just seems like it would make it so much more simpler if it was just, that's what it was in the statute, is that no, we are not allowed third-party sales, it's direct to the consumer, and that's it.
Yeah, this is Jane Jewett, and I know we've tackled this before, and I guess I'd be interested to hear from Jeff what the MDA's concerns are in terms of food safety with how community event is being defined, because it's, and I don't have the working definition in front of me now, which having a place where that working definition could be easily found would be great too. But there's been some discussion about whether a for-profit business could host a community event, and that has been a no from the MDA, but a nonprofit can. But if the nonprofit is having some form of cover charge to cover their expenses for putting on the event, then maybe it's not defined as a community event because of there being a charge for it. And I've heard conflicting things about that. So Jeff, would you be able to talk about that?
Yeah, Jane, I can't, honestly, I can't speak to those specifics. I'm just not aware. I don't think the MDA actually has any concerns with its working definition of community event, really, and with respect to food safety. We don't have any concerns with the definition that we have that I'm aware of. If there's specific concerns that anybody, as stakeholders, anybody, partners on the call, definitely willing to entertain written feedback on this. But again, we're not, as I said, we're the agency itself is not planning any initiative for changes.
Okay.
Hi, this is Cindy.
Cindy Weckworth, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I guess the city of Minneapolis historically has opposed trying to change the definition or define more clearly, because typically that means screwing down or tightening down the definition. And in Minneapolis, we try as much as possible to recognize that a community event doesn't need to be citywide. It might just be a neighborhood. It might be something that's a community is defined differently by different people. And so we've tried to be just as liberal with that definition as we can be. And if it's defined more tightly, it may lose some of that ability to, we don't want to lose the ability to be as flexible as we can be.
I know the part that's been confusing for me is when it appears that the toggle is if you charge or you don't charge. I just remembered a few years ago, Jim Rediger had shared that the Minnesota State Fair could use the 2014 Safe Food Sampling Law, because the Minnesota State Fair is a community event. And then if you wanted to do food sampling at the state fair, you just follow the protocols under 28A.151. And yet state fair charges. So I've never understood that rationale, like the difference between charging for something and not charging for something, how that gets you out of the community event definition or into it.
And this is Heather Mahoney. I just want to echo what Kathy said, because I had that same issue. I know, just living in Embarrass and being a cottage food producer myself, I was paranoid about going to sell at the Embarrass Fair because they charge $3 at the gate and it's run by a nonprofit. But I've had that same concern with what I've been trying to understand with where I can and where I can't sell. So.
Yeah, thanks everyone. All very good points. And like I said, definitely willing, please written feedback with concerns with respect to that working definition we've had. Definitely willing to receive and entertain the feedback there. I just wish I can't speak to the specifics. I'm just not that level of a subject matter expertise on it. I do apologize to everybody on the call for that, but by all means, willing to take feedback on this. The written is very helpful for us. So.
Jeff, that's good feedback. That's good feedback. And we can do that too. We can have that discussion and submit some written form. Jane?
Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly facilitate that. I guess where would people find that definition in an official location? Because Kathy has it in an email thread, I think, but if someone wanted to look up the working definition of community event, is there a way they can do that, or do we need to dig through our email threads to find it? And then would written commentary be sent directly to you or to the licensing liaison, or whom?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So I don't know if anybody else from MDA who's on the call, if you're aware of, I know it's within like internal documents for sure. So we can look to more broadly distribute it. I don't know what that mechanism would be right now. And then to your second question, Jane, myself, Catherine Simon, Jody, what have you. So, yeah.
Hey,
Thanks. Oh, Valerie, go ahead.
sorry, didn't want to cut in, but yeah, Jeff, as far as I know that we just have that on internal docs. I do have it pulled up if you would like me to just email it to you, Kathy and Jane, if you want to not go looking for it.
That would
That would be
lovely.
great. That would be
Okay.
great. And then we can share it through the LFAC minutes, right? And then anyone who has strong feelings, we will email that information to Jeff, Catherine Simon, and Jody Burke. Fair
Okay,
enough?
I'll send that to you now.
Thanks, Val.
Yep.
Todd has a question. Well, Greg, first of all, said, isn't the state fair always a special case? And are you saying that's because they're their own governing body? Is that what they are, Greg?
No, I'm not sure. I always just have been on these calls for a few years, and I always just hear things about when people talk about the state fair, just kind of say, well, that's the state fair. like we don't deal with the state fair. It's its own thing. And I didn't know if I don't know the codes, so I don't know if that's actually in code or what, but I always just assumed that the state fair didn't
Its own thing.
count.
Well, I referenced that case, and that in particular, Jim called it a community event and said to follow 28A.151. So in my head, he was looping that into the normal definition, but we'll follow this path of sending information back to MDA. Todd Bram is asking about maybe we are a large organic fresh market vegetable farm. We have annual community events for our 1,000 plus CSA members locally and throughout the Twin Cities. They host a strawberry social in the spring and a salsa social, and a strawberry salsa. Anyway, and a salsa social event in the fall. We also have had diner on the farm events. What is technically required or not allowed for those community events? Well, that's crossing over MDH and MD.
Right. That's where, if we look at some of the documentation that Rachel Armstrong from Farm Commons has put together, if it's a farm with a CSA, then there's a business purpose for that social. There's a business purpose for the farm. So it's kind of riding a gray line between whether it's a public community event or a business event. Yeah, I'll quit there if any of the regulators want to weigh in.
And I always appreciate the regulators' thoughtful take on all these before they answer. So I'm going to answer Lori's. Lori, that wouldn't necessarily all be product of the farm, I'm guessing. So
go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
I think a communication contact with the licensing agency where this entity is located, where these events occur. And depending on sort of the menu, if you will, it could be an MDH license event, could be an MDA license event. But I think a communication up front is what's key, because that's exactly to the point. These questions that appear here, every time we go through and ask the questions, is there an applicable license exemption here that they'd be working under? But it's that communication, those details through the communication, which is so important, that it's hard to say on a call like this, right? Answering a question like this, it's really case specific. Needs conversation, the details to determine if there's anything about that, the product itself, its processing, that and other sort of aspects of the event, if it would need a license or not. So conceivably, if these were not product of the farm exempt products, you could be looking at maybe like a temporary event, food event license here if it didn't qualify for a community event. was not license exempt. Doesn't mean it needed like an annual license, but to hold an event, it could be a special event, food stand, could be some other form of temporary or itinerant food stand license. So I hope that's helpful. I think what's important is that it starts with a conversation with the local licensing jurisdiction or state, whoever has jurisdiction.
Yeah, this is Wendy. I just want to piggyback on what Jeff said. We'd have to know, where is it taking place so that we could get into the details then of, what the menu is and how often. And it could very well fall under the, like Jeff had said, the special event licensing or something like that.
And Wendy, for Todd, your farm is in Minnesota, they would also, you'd also look at the approved water source, correct? As far as the MDH is well indexed?
Correct.
Okay. So Todd, you've got direction there. Start the conversation with your local, and we can help you on that to figure out if you're in a delegated authority location, or if you answer to either the state agencies. Anything else on, oh, Jeff, so then, if we're okay, then on community event, we are sensing some hesitation from the agencies, well thought out reasons why. We're sensing some unrest or uneasiness on the user side. So we'll get you some written documentation and see where we go from there. The community event, the last point under cottage food, Jeff, I think you're going to give us an overview on the MDA's proposed transitional license.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. I have a spreadsheet. I just don't know that it would project very well because it has a lot of information, some small words here, but I can give you an overview of an initiative that we started about a year ago in the legislative session. It's just unfortunately, it just didn't have a lot of time. It came in toward the end of the legislative session, didn't really have enough time to bring it over the finish line, if you will. So what I want to say about this upfront, importantly, because I think this transitional food license, it's been so closely associated with cottage food, but really the intent here is to reduce barriers to our licensing at the with the MDA, and it is really meant to gap license exempt, being license exempt, and it's not only cottage food, but importantly, it's product of the farm and it's on-farm businesses, or farm locations that may be interested in establishing a business, that may or may not involve cottage food. Could just be that exempt under product of the farm. So it's important to keep both of those things in mind, that it's meant to bridge from licensing exemption to retail food handler license. And it's basically a model that a bridge, if you will, that establishes, or at least proposes, not a step, but proposes two licensing categories. And one of the two bring like value added product, right? For sale. One of those, the proposed, before I get into the details here, what we did last year is excuse my cough, everybody, it's not COVID, I can assure you that. And you're at low risk of exposure from me with this format. So we have like I said, this framework, a spreadsheet that sort of depicts or illustrates the concept. But what we did last year in the legislative session is we also proposed some modifications to our statutes, 28A, our licensing law, to set up the licensing structure for this, and then also wrote a draft in statutes, chapter 31C, which would basically set up some food safety standards for these license types, because ultimately what we would be looking to do is to exempt them from the Minnesota Food Code as food establishments, meeting the definition of food establishment here. So it's one of the, it may you know, that's a very important point here, and it has repercussion or implications, if you will. And that's easy for that to just kind of pass by in communications. That idea that it would not be subject to the Minnesota Food Code, and there's implications for that. I'll touch on here just briefly. Okay, so the idea, the concept here is that one of them would be considered the proposal anyway is like a home baker license, and it would, you know, basically the revenues are not restricted. There's no cap on sales, and it's basically to allow somebody, say it's, you know, more closely related to just, you know, someone who may be doing cottage foods out of the home, who might be interested in getting into some products more. You know, the idea here is maybe more like baked goods that might need refrigeration or temperature to control the safety on the food, certain types of pies, cakes, you know, things of that nature. But to be able to have a licensed business from the home without cap on sales. But the idea here is that it would require a license, and it would, you know, open the home, those areas of food prep to inspection. And the standards that that draft 31C, that statute, sorry for the detail there, is basically really just very basic but very important food safety standards, you know, food handling, all the very important stuff that we think about, you know, health, hygiene, hand hygiene, you know, things of that nature, equipment to be able to keep the temperature, you know, the food safe, cleaning, sanitizing, things of that nature, just very basic food safety standards there. So that's part of the proposal. And then there's another type that what we've done is proposed literally a transitional. And the reason for that is this one is a term license. It has a 3-year term. It's one license fee for 3 years. That again is trying to get allow prospective business owners to begin a business, bring value added product that would otherwise, that's not exempt from licensure, that would give like a 3-year term. It would have limitations on the types of products, if you will. It's, if you can, in both cases, you know, many of us may be familiar of the idea of the prep serve, the ready to eat foods that don't, you know, once you prep them, it may just need temperature, like refrigeration to keep it safe generally. So not, you know, cooking, cooling, reheating, no specialized process type foods, anything like that. Any foods that need a variance, those kinds of things, but definitely otherwise non-license exempt value add type foods to offer for sale. And part of this, again, too, the reason, you know, so it would be exempted from the food code facility requirements, but there are, you know, part of the standards in that chapter 31C, it does touch on facilities and equipment, some basic things on facilities and equipment that would still be required, but you don't have the full suite of Minnesota Food Code requirements here. And then also what it does is relaxes, you know, our current licensing is sort of based on, you know, first it's like the legal entity, and then it's a license per place of business. And what this would do is say, hey, you might have, you know, you might need to store food in one location, do some of your prep or sale from another location. And this would basically make all of those locations take it all under one license. and not need separate licenses for those separate locations. Is really just trying to simplify some things, trying to reduce barriers to licensure, give about it's like a 3-year period, and then that license would terminate. And the idea is, the assumption is that the business owners are working toward a retail food handler license toward the end, investing in and working to a food handler license that then opens the door to do many more things: expansion on menu, allowed to wholesale their product, things of that nature, because these would be they would not be considered, ultimately, approved source for wholesaling. Say like a retail food handler who's currently licensed would not be able to take that product and sell it from their third-party sales. So it would still be restricted to direct consumer sales, is the proposal for the home baker and the transitional food handler. So that's fairly detailed there. I'll pause there. That's sort of the gist, if you will, of the concept. We haven't done anything further with the proposal since I'd say February or March of 2021, but are very open and willing, looking to move this forward in its development, and communication and feedback and input and review and all of that, just working collaboratively on this for the legislative session next legislative session, not this one. So
Jeff,
I'll pause there, see if there are any questions.
Yeah, we've got 2. So and maybe your second to last point there covered this. Would either of these categories allow me to stick these foods into the mail and ship them? And then Cindy would like, could you give us any examples of food types for transitional food?
Yeah, definitely open to sending things by mail. That's not something that's specifically identified that way, but it's something we can definitely talk about.
Okay.
And then examples of foods are, so along that lane, salads, sandwiches, a lot of the, the sort of those prep serve, keep it cold, ready to eat type items. The products of the farm. You just you imagine items that are products of the farm where they might want to make something that's essentially ready to eat, that really only needs refrigeration to keep it safe after it's been assembled, is the idea. So probably a host of other examples of types of foods that would qualify that I'm not thinking of right now, but just in a general broad category sense. You're very so yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
This is Jane. So the kinds of questions we get in Blazing Trails training a lot are about, and outside of that training, are about making a product that is mostly product to the farm, but not 100%. So it seems to me like that's kind of what you're talking about here, where someone might be growing their own cabbage and carrots and want to make a coleslaw, but have to use a purchased salad dressing for it.
That's right. And these are, to Cindy, to your question, yeah, definitely these would be, so it would be ultimately packaged food sales predominantly, but definitely would need review and input from other stakeholders, on this. So the intent would be within the MDA licensing jurisdiction, types of businesses. But
then Jeff, Laura's question, was it purely timing for why it didn't move forward last session, or was there any feedback that caused it additionally to be paused?
Yeah, it came in, it was proposed within committee, but it was after the point in which committees could effectively action it. in the process, really, and add it to any legislation moving forward after that. It came really late, unfortunately too late, for House or Senate committees to be able to consider it and push it forward. But it did get the basics of it. This information was sent to members of House and Senate, but they all, we held a phone call, but they really then just said, look, yeah, it's unfortunately it's just it's too late for them to move it forward or act on it at that point in the legislative session. So it was really timing.
Jeff, I'm assuming if anyone would like to look at this more and have a discussion, they can email you directly. And then if there's like a small subgroup that wants to discuss it or look at it, would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Kathy. Yep, would be happy to. Look into the group, right, for suggestions, ideas, and input, review for moving forward. Yeah, by all means.
Perfect. Yep, it's a lot of good things. I mean, there's a lot of good things there. I'd like to take a look at that. All right, folks, any other follow-up questions for Jeff on this topic? Otherwise, it is 3:04 and we have one topic left, and it's about freezing surplus produce for sale through the winter. And if you can hang in there for 15 more minutes, we'll go a little bit long today, if that's all right, since we've got some of the folks on the call that can answer this one. So hearing no objections, since I'm not actually going to give you time to give me any, product of the farm. What would MDA look for in terms of facilities for farmers doing this as product of the farm? We're freezing our surplus produce, and then we're going to sell it during the winter. What should the on-farm storage facilities look like? Best practices for transport of frozen product for sale. And product of the farm means no license required for the farmer, correct? Who would like to handle that?
Hey, Kathy, I think I can take a stab at it.
Perfect.
So if somebody is doing processing of product of the farm products, no license is required as long as they add only ingredients from their farmer garden. So right there, we're outside of the definition of a food establishment. And that just means that the retail food code wouldn't apply. So after that, I mean, we would look at, we would ask the questions that we usually ask, like what are the products that are being handled? What's the end goal with those products? Where are they going to be sold? How are they going to be sold? To kind of get a handle on that, wholesale or not space. But we're still going to be looking for kind of basic GMP, good manufacturing practice type environments for producing anything. So like, let's say that somebody wants to freeze carrots, maybe. That's not something that could be done in a home kitchen if we're doing it under the product of the farm license exclusion, because the license exclusion only takes away the licensing piece. It doesn't take away any of the food safety requirements. And so for any of our licensed establishments, it's not making something like that in a home kitchen is not allowed. So I know that gets tricky on farms, especially as we've been out doing inspections on farms. I mean, a lot of people live on farms and then do everything in that space, right? I mean, there's no separation. So what would we be looking for? I mean, we would be looking for something that's not the farm home kitchen, but there are a lot of different things that it could be. So I mean, I'm trying really hard to stay away from it, depends, but I mean, we'd be looking at what they want to use and trying to evaluate that against kind of standard. Is it adequate? Is it cleanable type of evaluations? We'd be looking at water source. We'd be looking at, sewer depending on where they are, what kind of, wastewater treatment we're dealing with.
Val, I've been on some of produce farms that their packing sheds are nicer than my kitchen. Could a section of a packing shed meet that GMP, do you think?
Yeah, potentially. I've been in some that are really nice too. I think it really, but again, I know that it depends thing is terrible, but it really, really does. I mean, it depends on what it is that they want to be doing and where they want to sell it and what else is going on at that farm too. I mean, it all works together, and that's what we're evaluating, and because we're going for overall risk evaluation, right? So like, it's really hard to just pull out one piece and say, yeah, people could use their packing sheds. I don't know for sure. I mean, it would be depending on the situation.
If I could add to this too, one more comment on the transitional food, and what Valerie brings up some very good points. So basically, that transitional, that part of that license proposal is consistent with what Valerie said, that part is not intended for home kitchen, on farm, separate from the home baker, and sort of the facilities part to that assessment, the water sewer. It's a pretty key thing to it. So just wanted to add that because I did not comment, wanted to clarify that as well.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, so that kind of, Jane, you want to add there then?
Well, I just want to give Todd Bram an opportunity to ask a question if he wants to, because Featherstone Farm has had a bunch of ideas about using up surplus produce in various ways. And he asked the question about freezing tomatoes. So Todd, if you have any follow-up questions you want to ask, go ahead.
Hi, Jane, thank you. I guess Jane's right. We currently freeze watermelon juice in quart and pint jars and keep them frozen in our facility and a local licensed restaurant facility that has freezers. And in the winter, we ship that out to our 1,000+ members via frozen in a sleeve. It's like a bubble wrap sleeve, and inside it is the pint jar, plastic jar. We also, like Jane mentioned, we have tons and tons and tons of heirloom tomatoes, literally that you walk out there in the fall after we've harvested all the beautiful stuff to sell to our co-ops and Whole Foods, and they're just falling off the vine and not being used. So we're wanting to try to do the same with tomatoes, freeze the sauce, freeze the juice, whatever we can do. We're looking with Department of Ag out of Rochester to get a license this spring. We also, on top with that, because it's a CSA program, we also like aggregate some other organic farm produce in our boxes that we don't either raise or just offers more variety to our CSA members. Another one is, just to add to the mix, another one is we do offer a egg share that is packaged and wrapped and just shipped to us, and we put it in the boxes from another farm near Iowa. And on top of that, we did have cover crop red winter wheat, and we've had that taken to a facility in Wisconsin that mills it for us, and they'll ship it back to us in 2-pound bags, and then we'll offer that to our members. So that's just a gamut of what we're trying to do, utilize crops that aren't beautiful and just value-added stuff. And I don't know if I have a specific question, because I understand Jeff's comments about the complexity or the hesitancy to be specific about what I can and cannot do without looking at the facility and going through the process itself. We're GAP certified, we're organic, FSMA overview. I guess I just love the opportunity to have your comments and see the complexity of it. I love this transitional effort because I think it hits home even with a farm, let alone a kitchen home. So I don't know what if you have any comments about any of those items that I've listed. I hesitated being so general, but that's the gist of it. We're just kind of hoping to make the best out of the produce that we have and make $1. So any questions, I'm open.
Todd, where are you located? I'm going to try to do, where are you located?
We're southeast Minnesota, Rushford, Minnesota. We're west of La Crosse, Wisconsin, about 35 miles, and east of Rochester, Minnesota, about 40.
And so most likely not a delegated authority. I'm guessing straight up under MDA. Jeff and Val, do you think?
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, pretty sure would be.
Yep.
So then, Todd, that's really where you're going to start that conversation on under MDA, because that's what you're talking about is going to fall under a lot of what they do. And so you're going to need to get a hold of them and go through. And is that Jody Burke? I mean, is Todd going to get to Jody Burke right away?
That's correct, Jody.
Todd, if you don't have Jody's contact information, we can find it. It's not right on the MDA site. We can get that to you, but that's where that conversation should start.
Yes.
Unless I'm wrong. I mean, sorry, Jeff and Bill.
No, that's great, Kathy. Thank you.
Yep, Kathy, thank you. That's right. Yeah.
Because I'm loving what you're talking about. And I think there are a couple of them I can tell you right now that I would be 100% sure that I could tell you the right answer. But then there's other ones that you're talking about that are more complex and you're going to need to talk to Jody. So let's send that conversation there because that's what has to happen in all these situations. Oh, Jane, should we, it is 3:15. So we're going to get Todd to connect with MDA Jody. Should we talk about the license, those last 2 points? If a product is made at an off-farm location, stored on the farm, sold at retail, the farmer needs 3 licenses. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was kind of covered by Jeff's discussion of what the transitional license would look like. So I really appreciate that information, Jeff, on the transitional license, because I didn't know those details before of what had been proposed. So yeah, I think that's a really good start towards addressing that concern, especially for people who are new and starting up, if they would have an option for a license that would kind of be an umbrella over their activities and not make them have to get 3 licenses right off the bat for, making a jam in one place and storing it in another place and selling it in a third place.
Exactly. Yeah.
And does that cover the last question there, the fleet concept of licensing?
Yeah, that's exactly what we had talked about previously with the fleet concept, which was thrown out by, oh shoot, now I'm blanking on his name, the Farmers Union, Bruce Miller, who passed away. But he threw out that concept for that license, and it sounds like that's what the transitional license concept has picked up, being able to fit a couple of activities taking place in different locations under the same license, at least in the startup phase.
All right, folks. Alex, thanks for putting that in for Todd. Todd, if you can get out to the chat, Alex has copied in for you the intake form for the food liaison, and that is really where that whole process starts. So if you can grab that, that'll help you get started on that process. All right, folks, I think we're to the end of the agenda. Any last comments or thoughts? It's 3:17. Excellent. Todd is already connected with Jody. They're on a path. Good job. All right, just let us know how y'all do. And thanks for joining us today, Todd. It helps to have producers on the call. All right, folks, if not, we're done for the day, right? Have a good one. Stay warm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You
Kathy.
too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.